What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be painting this elixir making creep called the Alchemist. Stay tuned. Greetings, nerds, and welcome back to MK Mini Studio. Today I'm going to be painting the Alchemist, the special character model from Conquest's Battle of Nepenthe campaign set from Parabellum. Inside this lore and scenario booklet, you can see the artwork their studio went with. I really like the deep reds, so I'm going to keep those, but change quite a bit more of it. As you can see, my figure has already received a zenithal highlight. That means I sprayed everything with a black base, then came back with a light gray at a 45-degree angle around the whole thing and from above, and lastly a pure white only from directly above. As I start my base colors, I'm going to begin with all the bone plate areas. The majority of the model is this color, which is one of the reasons why I'm starting with it, but also because I'm going to be using my favorite color to use for bony things, and that is Army Painter's Pallid Bone Speed Paint. It takes a considerable amount of time to dry, which is the reason why I want to begin with it. You probably noticed I used a small poppet to dispense my paint into. I use this for speed paints and washes, anything where I want to load up my brush for a heavier, maybe even messier application. In the end, I won't leave the bone areas just the pallid bone color, but I'm going to come back and add some highlights as well. Here's a look at all the bone areas base coated with that pallid bone. Next, I'll be coloring the deep red areas and be base coating with Formula P3's Sanguine base. This is going to go on all the robes, the wings, and the headdress. Later on, I add a second coat of the same color off camera because it's not very opaque and I want a nice solid layer before building up the highlights. And here's a quick look at those reds after they've been applied. Next up is the skin and hair. I want my main color for the skin to be this P3 Frostbite, but I'll be adding this Troll Blood base as the shade color. I want the hair to be close, similar in color, but not the same, so I'll be tinting it with Army Painter's Marine Mist to add a greenish feel. This layer is the Frostbite with the Troll Blood base mixed into it. You want to start with your darker color and build up in the lighter tones as you go along. Here is that Frostbite, but with the Marine Mist mixed into it. After the skin and hair, I'm going to paint the accent sash around the main robes. I love this Pharaoh Guard color, and it'll play nicely with the deep reds, so I'm using it here for the base tone, along with Angel Green for shade and Aqua Alchemy for the highlight. Obviously, I had to use the Aqua Alchemy color on the Alchemist, right? I start here by mixing some of the Angel Green into the Pharaoh Guard and lay that down over all the sash area. Then I come back with the Pharaoh Guard alone and paint over all the raised areas, being careful not to get into the recesses. The final highlight of Aqua Alchemy is applied to just the topmost edges. You can see when the area is large enough, I'll use small, thin strokes and or stippling, which adds a textured feel to the fabric pieces of the model. And here it is with all the greens on the sash fully done. Now I'm going to be adding a little more color to the skin, that is with highlights, starting first by using the frostbite color. You can see I'm highlighting the cheekbones, the nose, forehead, and ears. All those areas on the face, the places that light would catch the most. Then I'll go through and highlight the other skin areas that need it on the fingers and such. Actually, I should have, at this point, gotten all of the ab and midriff area, but I totally forgot about it. I come back and get it later, though. Here I am doing a final highlight of the skin by mixing in a bit of white to the frostbite color. Here's a quick look at the face before moving on to painting the eyes. Now, when I started these, I started off with a white because I thought I was going to give him regular sort of eyes, but I decided to change approaches and give him completely black eyes for a haunting, empty inside look. This also includes the 4 eyes that are on top of his head. I think it turned out nicely. Alright, time for me to fix that mistake of not getting all the skin highlights done at the same time. A lot of the midsection of the body is overcast by the upper bone armor around the shoulders, so not all of it will be highlighted. Only the lowest sections that are more exposed to light. After skipping around so much, I'm back to finish up the red robes and wings. I added a touch of black to the sanguine base red color that I started with, watered the mix down, and began applying it to the deeper recesses and folds of the fabric. And the reason I'm doing this is because I decided that the red shade I started with was not dark enough. And so, rather than starting as the sanguine base and continuing to brighten from there, I wanted to bring the shade colors down a notch to stay overall darker as the end result. Next, I'm bringing out the red more by applying this Carnage Red from Reaper Paints to the upper, more lit areas of the robes. On the wings, you'll see I'm staying in the middle as best as I can, careful not to get too close to the wing ribs on either side. The underside of the left wing is completely overcast, so I won't highlight that area at all, but there is just a touch on the underside of the right wing that needs it. I went through and did a second pass on all those same areas to make it even more rich of a red in those spots. Of course, all the same principles apply to the headdress that did to the robes. In fact, when bringing out the highlights on any color, it's basically the same process. Decide what you want your overall color to be, find a good complementary darker color to make the shade color that's going to be in those spots, and then build up your layers from there, making it lighter as you go. Now it's time for the final highlight of the red. I'll mix a touch of this Army Painter Demonic Yellow into the Carnage Red from before, then just hit the tips and highest light catching points. Again, using small, thin strokes and stippling at times to convey textures. And here it is, with all the reds and greens and blues done. Next, I'll be working on all the metal areas of the mini, using these metallic Vallejo chrome color, along with P3 Boiler Black for the areas I want to stay more of just a silver color. And I'll be using various shades of AK Interactive inks along the way to achieve certain effects. So if you're like me, you hate painting gold with just gold metallic colors because they never lay down quite right, they're not opaque enough, so on and so forth. I don't like it, but I learned a trick back a while, a different way to go about painting gold, and so I'm going to show that to you right now. We're going to start by basing all the areas that we want to end up gold with the chrome color. Before I move on with the rest of the gold areas, I'm going to start painting all the greenish metallic bits, and this is because I was already working with the chrome color, and to get this metallic green look, I mixed just a very small amount of the AK Interactive inks, the green and the blue, into that chrome to get this final greenish metallic color. Now I'm using the P3 Boiler Black for all of the other metal areas that are going to stay more of the silvery color. Okay, back to the golds. What I'm going to do is stain the chrome to make it look gold using these sienna and yellow inks, as well as some Army Painter speed paints. And oh my gosh, I just knocked him over. He'll be fine.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Alright, so for the gold, I'm going to stain the chrome and all the shaded areas with the sienna ink. Then I come in with an orange tone made by mixing the two Army Painter speed paints to hit the mid layers. Finally, I'll come through with the yellow ink hitting all of the highlight areas. In hindsight, I should have probably done the shaded areas with the sienna, then the highlights with the yellow, and blend them together with the orangey mid-tone color. It might have worked a bit better in the end, but I'm pleased with the results overall. Here I'm going back over the areas with the various shades I've already used to fix the blending, sort of messing with it back and forth until it looks right. At this point I'm almost done. I'm going to do a final highlight of just plain silver, in this case P3's Quicksilver. I'll use it to highlight all of my metallic areas, but especially the greenish blue metallics. Off camera, I've painted the wing ribs a black, and now I'm going to highlight them. I'm going to use P3's Coal Black, which is more of a dark green, to highlight rather than a gray, so that I'll retain more color saturation. Though it's pretty hard to see in this video, you may not be able to tell. Next up, I'm going to paint the emeralds, one on the forehead and one on the chest. I'm going to be using a set of AK Interactive paints that were sold together specifically for this use in Jewels. Starting with the base tone, which is called Esmeralda. After the base tone, the gems get a shade of a color called black green. However, the logic on gems is actually backward from normal, in my opinion, because the shade color goes on the top side, whereas the highlight is going to go on the underside. The highlight color here is pastel green. Lastly, I'm going to add some glare with pure white. And that's the gems all finished. Alright, so right here, I missed painting these cords or cables or whatever they are when I was doing metallics earlier. Here I'm using the P3 Boiler Black again on the cables and a gold color on the loops. But because it's such a small area, I decided to use an actual gold paint rather than doing the staining technique again. Okay, so moving on, we're going to do the potion bottles and vials next. I'm going to paint the corks first with P3's Guncore Brown. Alright, so since I'm already working with browns, I'm going to use Army Painter Oak Brown to color the rope and tassels that hang on the front here. After the base tones, I lightened it up a little with a tan color and came back with the highlight. And then I also highlighted the edges of the corks. So here's a look at all the colors I chose to use for the bottle contents. They're all from the Army Painter Warpaint Fanatics line. On the bottle in this left hand, the one I painted with Hydra Turquoise, I wanted to make it look like it wasn't completely filled, so I left a gap near the top, which I painted with the Frostbite color from earlier to look like a clear glass. To further enhance the glass vial look, I coated each little potion bottle with a layer of UV resin, which I cured off camera. Using a toothpick to apply the resin gives me the control I need, but without gumming up any of my brushes. And here's a look once they're all done. Okay, one final step, and that is the final touch-ups and highlights of the bone areas. I'll be using layered mixes of P3 Guncore Brown, Vallejo Khaki, and Army Painter Ancient Stone. For the most part, starting with darker colors in larger areas and working my way up to the lightest color in the smallest, most raised edges. Now I won't be doing any additional shading in this step as it was all done by the speed paint earlier. So because the bone area covers the majority of the model, and because I use more layers of colors, it by far takes the longest out of the whole process of this figure. So enjoy. Hopefully you find it just as therapeutic to watch as I do. Speaking of watching, I wanted to say a big thanks to everybody. If you've stuck with it this far, we're almost at the end. I appreciate you watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and down in the comments you can tell me, things I did right, things I did wrong about the video in particular. Is this a good style? Should I try for something different? What's the kind of thing that you guys want to see? I'd be interested in knowing. I would love to know what it is about Conquest that you love the most. Is there a certain faction you like the best? I'm partial to the Spires and Euroni myself. Do you like the size and detail of the models? I know I do. How about the extensive lore? Is it something that grips you and you just love being immersed in? Have you played any of the campaign lore scenarios? Or is this your first time hearing about Conquest? Let me know about it in the comments. Make sure you do stick around until the end of the video so you can hear about a special offer from Parabellum-Games. When you get to your lightest color for a final highlight, remember you don't have to hit every bit of raised area. It's okay to have broken lines and dots here and there to enhance realism. Also, on some of the larger areas, don't forget to use different brush strokes to add a textured feel. For the bone, I like using stippling. And there we have it. The figure is completely painted. All that's left is the final step of basing. Here's a look at another of my Spires figures and how its base looked. Keep in mind I added a texture paste to this base before I did my Zenithal Prime. First, paint on your dirt color of choice. Then do some dry brushing with a lighter color. I'm going to be using Gamer's Grass adhesive grass tufts. These things are great. I love them so much. Just gonna grab my tweezers and put one in place real quick. Then take some Mod Podge and spread it around in patches on the base where I want the flocking to go, but leaving some of the dirt exposed. I'll add the flocking over a paper plate so I can catch and reuse everything that doesn't stick. I'm using this brush here to wipe away small bits of flocking that want to stick onto the figure. Now after this layer dries, I will come back with watered down PVA glue to seal it all in and make sure that that grass isn't going anywhere. Clean up just a little bit. And then the final step is painting the rim of the base black. Once that's done, the Alchemist is completely finished, and we're ready for the grand reveal. Did you know that Parabellum offers STL files for various terrains to match their factions from their website? Here you can see I printed off several pieces from the Spires collection. I want to give a big shout out to the fine folks at Parabellum for sending this figure to me. You can head over to their eShop to browse the full Con campaign lore pack, the Spires terrain STL files, and much more. And when you do, be sure to use the code MKMini to get 10% off, which will also help support my channel. That's all for this one. I thank you so much for watching, and I greatly appreciate it. Until next time, be blessed and happy painting.